Welcome, everybody. Once again, we're here with the Council to Advance Hunting and the Shooting Sports, and we're talking about building out our skills and working across silos to create your R3 team. And today I've got an incredible group of women who are working on some really fantastic projects that relate to communications and how working with that communication skill set can help enhance our work. So with that, I'm going to do a round of introductions. My name is Taniya Bethke, and I am the Director of Operations with the Council. And Tanna, why don't you go next?
Thanks, Taniya. It's great to be here. We really appreciate you having us on. My name is Tanna Fanshier. I'm the R3 coordinator for the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks.
And Rachel?
Hey, Rachel Alliss with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. I don't really know what my job is, a jack of all trade, master of none within the communication outreach and marketing section here at the DNR.
Awesome. And Julia?
Hello, I am Julia Plugge with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. I am an outdoor education specialist here in Nebraska.
Fantastic. And Lance?
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Lance Cherry, and I am the Communications and Marketing Manager for the Council to Advance Hunting and the Shooting Sports.
Awesome. So I'm so excited to have you on. We just got to see each other last week at the symposium, but at least some of us did. And so it's really fun to be able to get together. I know it's peak season. I know you all have been running around doing all sorts of incredible things recently, which is, I know, eats into our ability to connect on this. So just thank you so much for making the time for us to have this conversation. I'm glad to shine a bright spotlight on what you're doing. So first and foremost, She Goes Outdoors is a fantastic project that has gotten me really excited to think about how we can work across state lines with other partners. So I don't know who'd like to kick us off, but could you please tell us, just from a brief overview, what is She Goes Outdoors and how did this project come to be?
Yeah, Taniya, I'm happy to answer that. I'll take the easy one off the bat so I can pass it on to Rachel and Julia when things get tough. So She Goes Outdoors was a partnership. Honestly, the She Goes Outdoors podcast started in Nebraska. So at that point, Kansas and Iowa were not yet involved. And I think that was an idea over maybe some beverages at another conference. And we decided, hey, let's get this tri-state, this regional partnership going and expand that podcast a little. So Rachel and I were lucky enough to join Julia on the podcast. And then as we started developing that partnership and our chemistry started growing between the three of us and our states, COVID hit. And that was just quite the blow, as everyone in this community knows. How are we going to do events? How are we going to reach these audiences, particularly audiences that really relied on in-person events like Becoming an Outdoors Woman and those really fantastic weekends and events that we have through that program. And so we thought, well, if we can't join these ladies in the outdoors safely, then how do we bring the outdoors and these outdoor learning opportunities to them? So Rachel and Julie and I put our heads together and came up with the idea of these outdoor subscription boxes. So the boxes are super fun. They're jam-packed with all sorts of literature, education materials, gear, and then they're also connected to webinars. So folks can join us to learn more about what's in their box and how to use the items, as well as network with their peers. So that's a big overview, and I'm sure we'll get into more detail later.
Awesome. So, along those lines, if you could expand, or, Julia or Rachel, if you could tell me a little bit more, were all three states involved from the very beginning, or was that something that kind of developed over time?
So like Tanna mentioned, the initial thought was here in Nebraska, but we were just having that discussion kind of back and forth here in Nebraska, and we were looking to expand knowledge, expand partners, communication, expertise. And that's when we reached out to Tanna and Rachel to help out. And honestly, it goes back to when we did this huddle here in Nebraska. We were we were all kind of having this, like, how can we make our Become an Outdoor Woman programs better, our outreach to women programs better? And so that's where, like, let's huddle, let's come to Nebraska, let's just brainstorm, how can we help each other out? And then, as Tanna mentioned, that is when COVID hit. And because we, the three of us kind of had that vibe, we have similar interests, we have similar programs. Our states kind of look the same as far as projects and outdoor skills. That's when we just continued to click and move forward.
That is awesome. It's amazing how our relationships with each other can enhance relationships more broadly. Rachel, what else did you add to that?
I just wanted to say that we'd be remiss if we didn't include NWTF in that initial kind of foresight. National Wild Turkey Federation, with Michaela's leadership at the time, really kind of came in, and it was really Julia and Michaela's back and forth that got this whole thing started. And so we had the NWTF's women's program, their leadership within kind of the Midwest states at that initial huddle. And that's where it kind of, this whole crazy brainchild came from, was how do we do this? We're all kind of reinventing the wheel. What can we steal from each other, and how can we partner? And so this was kind of the natural next step out of that meeting.
Very cool.
Yeah. Rachel called it the brainchild, and it really does, like, they say it takes a village to raise a child, and that has been our experience. Lots of really great partnerships and support that we've received.
And I just can't believe what you can accomplish when you get the right brains in the right room at the right time, right? And so when you were having that initial discussion about, why we should do this, how we should reach particular people, what should the different facets of this project be? Like, what are your, like, at that time in the development of this project, what were your desired outcomes for this? Why the boxes and the webinars and the podcasts and this particular target audience? What were some of the driving features and that desired outcomes from that?
I think the original thought behind when we started the podcast was, honestly, it goes back to, I was trying to find a podcast that fit me, an adult onset hunter that was looking for kind of that beginning low level knowledge to connect with. All I could find was podcasts that were like way above my head, and I wasn't ready to go to that step. And so, in discussion with Tanna and Rachel and also Michaela, we were all at that same level. And so we wanted to reach out to the experts to learn. So we were learning as we listened to them. And that's how that started. Is like, okay, well, if I can't find a podcast that meets my needs, and we're going to make one ourselves. And that's how that all came to be. And then it kind of, then, like you said, when COVID hit, and then it moved into the boxes. And so it's kind of just continues to progress from there, which is just been so much fun.
Yeah, to kind of build on that, I mean, all three states have fairly similar demographics. We all have Becoming an Outdoor Woman program. All three of the BOW programs partner with outside entities. So we already have a lot of the similarities. And the other thing is, we all have states with really small staffs. So you're looking at those that are in charge of doing all those programming, or, we certainly bring in support staff and beg, steal, and borrow help wherever we can get it. But most of it relies on us. So when, it was like cancel, everything was shut down. And instead of backtracking through, we made all these forward progressions in all of our states, creating networks of ladies that we wanted to continue growing, because the whole point is to give knowledge, and then set free, right? Like, I always kind of joke that I have like a little bird cage, come hang out, but then I want you to leave, because I don't want you here for 8 years. I want you to actually like get other girlfriends together and go do these skills instead of coming back and hanging out with me. As much as I love, seeing you again, but go and then invite me, because I'd much rather like another girls' weekend to go do whatever cool trip you're doing. So, and we kind of joked that we all love seeing like the delivery man or woman come, right? Like, we all love seeing that truck, and especially in that beginning stage of COVID, it was like, you're stuck at home. I sat out on my porch a lot, and it was like me, the birds, my other neighbors on their porches, and then the delivery people, like they were still out. And it was like, yes, oh, you're not coming to visit me. Okay, well, I'm excited for whoever's getting that package. And so, we kind of joked that it would be really fun to get a box that we actually wanted. So that's how we started going into this. We call it a subscription box. It really isn't. It's like a box by order, and you get a delivery date. We aren't Amazon. It's not 24-hour shipping. It's, when we get to it at the date, it goes. And but we really wanted the important thing was to keep that education piece, because you can get equipment. I mean, you can find heck of a deal on gear, but if you don't have that resource to really understand how to do it, right? Like, I've had binoculars all my life. It wasn't until our bird watching podcast with Vortex where they were on there and they're like, no, there's like all these knobs that you're actually supposed to move around, and you're not going to break it, and do it because now you can actually see out of your binoculars, not just your eyelashes. Duh, right? Like it turns out that I've been using binoculars wrong all of my life. So, but again, it to build that support network, even though it wasn't there. So we kind of joked that it was like this Brady Bunch support network when we got to be on these Zooms and see women doing it. And like, some of the first boxes, I was like, this is a harebrained idea. Like, no one's going to be on. And then we got on and there's like these smiling faces, like, what are you going to teach us? And then, I mean, what was it? The fishing one? Like, no, it was outdoor cooking. I was teaching them how to like fold parchment paper to make a liner. And I'm like holding a cell phone that's connected to Zoom while trying to do stuff with my hands, while trying to talk and not laugh, like holy hot mess. But it was fun because then you look on screen and you got all these people folding things around, like along with you. I'm like, oh my God, they're doing it. This is like actually happening. This like pipe dream has come to fruition. It was just, it's been fun kind of learning and like, will people do this with us? Like, are you really going to rig up an ice fishing pole with us? Yes. It turns out yes is the answer. So
well, I am so hungry for this kind of information too, and distinctly during COVID, but especially now. I work remotely. I'm hungry for social engagement, especially with other cool women that are doing similar things and interested in the things that I'm passionate about. So, tell me more about the boxes. Like, what goes out in the boxes? How do those then connect them to your webinars or to your Zoom calls? Like, what's the flow there? What are people getting?
Yeah. So
how did you get all of this stuff for the boxes? I also want to know that. Like, where?
Absolutely. So each individual box is priced at $50, and that price kind of came about via a poll that we sent out, and I think it was to past BOW participants. Julia's nodding. And we asked them basically a variety of different price lines, like what would you be willing to pay for an item like this or for a service like this? And so that's how we landed on $50. We are extremely proud, through the partnership with our wonderful sponsors, our wonderful partners, to offer like usually around $100 to $200 worth of materials in the boxes. So it's a phenomenal deal. If you're thinking, oh, $50, that's kind of steep. Typically people will get their first box and send us an email right away saying they can't believe all of the incredible items that are in there. So we work with our partners, we work with retailers to get a lot of items donated. For items that can't be donated, we are very fortunate to receive discounts. There's sponsorship opportunities with our boxes as well, if companies or organizations would like to provide branded items. For example, the Kansas Ornithological Society provided like lens cleaning cloths for the binoculars and the birding box. So lots of really great items there. The very first box we had was a pheasant box. And that was a ton of fun. We included game shears in that. We included an outdoor edge knife so people could clean their birds. We had recipe kits in there. All sorts of really great stuff. Some things provided by Pheasants Forever as well.
We also paired it up with a gun cleaning kit because, the big thing, if you're out pheasant hunting, we wanted you to have a field kit so that you could actually clean your gun, because the whole intent was to get you out in the field. And then when we did our podcast, we paired that with conservation officers or game wardens, depending on the state, who could actually talk specific to laws and regulations there. We then talked about, like walk-in hunting access programs and just different access points, how to talk to landowners, those types of things, like just building on the perceived barriers and the known barriers that we're aware of, and then also giving the Q&A time for the ladies to ask. We always say, like, there is no harebrained question. There is just a question that hasn't been asked yet and we haven't thought about. So throw it out there. And we always gave like the anonymous option, right? If you want to email me, I'm happy to ask us the question for you. So that it wasn't kind of intimidating that way. But we were lucky. I mean, like with our outdoor cooking box, obviously we couldn't ship a Dutch oven, right? $50 for a box, $50 would have been eaten solely by shipping. So we were able to partner with like Rome Industries. They gave us a heck of a deal on a pie iron, often overlooked way of cooking, right? With bird watching, we partnered with Vortex, and not only did they give us an amazing deal on the product, they also joined us for the podcast, or excuse me, for the webinar to actually talk about how to use the thing. Pheasants Forever has been a champion for us.
Twice now. Yeah.
With the pheasant hunting one, they actually gave our ladies a Women on the Wing membership so that they kind of were open up to a whole different world and brought into a community right from the start, in addition to what we had.
Social support's huge. How cool to be able to connect people right away.
It is. And then we have to, like, we've been lucky enough to work with our Hunter Education Foundation. That's probably a big one. Like, how did you receive funds? What do you do with the money? Those types of like nuanced questions. Well, we worked with our nonprofit, and they're the ones that actually take the money on our behalf and pay our bills on our behalf and kind of do that side of things. So a huge shout out to the Iowa Hunter Ed Instructor Association, because without them, we'd kind of be dead in the water, just trying to work through state procurement policies and everything else. And so.
That's absolutely wild. I just trying to think about 3 states working together to pull off a project like this and keeping it going. And so, I'm sure you face some struggles and challenges, and this has ended up in a place, I'm sure that, it's evolving over time. But I'm curious, of all of the experiences that you've had since She Goes Outdoors started, what has been the richest part of the experience for each of you?
I think mine was this past fall when we were actually able to have our Become an Outdoor Woman main weekend event. And that was at Fort Robinson here in Nebraska. And I started looking around and I was seeing women wearing the She Goes Outdoors hat, the swag that we send. So every time if you are a new subscriber or you purchase your first box, we try to provide a hat. And I was looking around and seeing these women that were wearing the hat. And so I did like a, raise your hand evaluation, asks, how many of you are here for the first time? And I mean, there was good 75% of them raising their hand, 50%, whatever. And then I said, how many of you heard about this program through the She Goes Outdoors? And several of those hands stayed up. And I guess that was a pretty cool, like, this is awesome moment, because we have now, they had not known about BOW prior to the She Goes Outdoors. We connected with them through this COVID experience, this new audience, and now they're moving forward and participating in other outreach events. And now I still, like, I can see those hats being worn all over Facebook and Instagram and in other programs. And I guess that's just what's really cool is they're moving forward. They're making these connections, their communities, and kind of hit it home there.
Oh, that's absolutely rich. Feeling like you've made a difference and seeing the fruits of your labor. That's huge. Tanna, what about you?
It's tough to narrow down. We've had some really great support from partners. We really enjoyed sharing in Iowa at the Midwest meeting some feedback from Sharonda Burtz with the Wilderness Organization. She jumped on and told us what she thought. And it was incredible hearing that from a great partner and a great friend, really her honest opinion of what she thought. And she is our biggest supporter, going out and screaming it from the rooftops. So that was really fun, but also our webinars. Just seeing those faces, we'll have our event, we'll have our webinar, people engage and interact so well. And then we officially sign off and end the podcast, expecting it to just be the 3 of us left in the Zoom room. And there's just these twinkling eyes staring back at us, so kind and excited and engaged, and thanking us for making this opportunity possible. And obviously, like we've mentioned, it isn't all of us. We have a great network of support helping us bring this program to the forefront. But it's really cool to see. And you feel like you're making an impact when they feel so compelled to stick on and tell you how they're taking these programs back to their schools, to their communities, how they're telling their friends and their fellow church members. It's just really powerful. Rachel?
That's awesome.
I don't know how I can top it, but I guess it's been nice. It's been a really fun kind of internal building project too. So Iowa packed the first 4 boxes. So that was like our aquatic ed staff, our hunter ed staff, our archery staff, our shooting sports staff, and any other person I could convince that they wanted to spend 4 hours packing boxes with me. And it kind of became like this like little like internal rallying cry that like, yeah, like this one's going to Washington, this one's going to Florida. Like, I mean, it's crazy to me that, you know, we think of this is a face of radio, right? And so like I'm not expecting anyone to actually ever listen to the podcast. Like that sounds silly, but like to Julia's point, like it's like we kind of talk in this like Zoom space, but it turns out people listen. And so I was here at work and like someone was like, wait, I've heard your voice before. And I was like, oh my God, you just started like 3 months ago. Like who, hi, I'm Rachel. She's like, I know. I'm like, like, do you care to introduce yourself? Right. Like this. And so anyway, so it turns out like we had so many commonalities and we ended up bringing her on the podcast, and it was like this really great conversation about Outward Bound and what that program does. So it was just this cool thing that was like, you started listening to us before you started with the department and you felt like you already knew me. Like what a cool thing. And then our director is like 100% on board and rocks the She Grows Outdoors hat on all over Facebook. Like it's just so fun to see the support and backing for like kind of creative out of the box thinking. It's been fun and exciting to see what comes next.
I love hearing that, and just knowing that, you know, a lot of times we think about R3 as like a program, you know, like teaching a class. But you know, that has such a limited scope. So seeing what you're doing and understanding that you have such a broader reach than perhaps we've had historically is super exciting. Are there any other cool external relationships that have come out of this She Goes Outdoors development?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked. I was actually just talking to our partners with Wilderness earlier today, and they're hoping to put on a backpacking event in the Kansas area. And so they actually reached out and said, hey, we heard that you guys are having a backpacking She Goes Outdoors subscription box. How can we coordinate with you to like collaborate on the launch of both our event and your boxes going out, so that our She Goes Outdoors subscribers will be able to get their box, participate in the webinar, and then go to that Wilderness event, find a network of women, find that support, and feel fully, I don't know, excited and ready to take that on in person and have that confidence from, you know, participating in the box in our webinar. So we're really thankful that they reached out and want to continue that partnership with us.
Man, that's cool.
And we mentioned pollinators, or we mentioned Pheasants Forever a little earlier, and same thing after our pollinator box, where Pheasants Forever and Women on the Wing is doing an event afterwards. And the subscribers of the box got a major discount to be able to go to this Women on the Wing event, where we're going to be sipping wine and talking pollinators. So a lot of partnerships have been created through this experience.
All of this is just exciting and innovative, and just the fact that it took 3 states together working collaboratively and external partners, that you can work across state lines to get this done. And so, you know, looking at this in and of itself as a really amazing and innovative way to do our tree work is exciting for me. But in addition to that, you are communicating very intentionally with a particular part of our user base, and I think that that is super inspirational. So if you could, I'd like to get into a little bit of a conversation around what it's like to think differently about the way that we do communication in R3. You know, like, again, we come from these roots of education. You know, a lot of R3 practitioners perceive R3 as an educational opportunity or program, but it's so much more than that. There's regulation complexity that's part of R3. There's, you know, destroying other kinds of barriers like land access. There's communication and marketing that's part of R3. There's a lot more to it. And so you really are at the heart, this group here is really at the heart of the communication aspect. And so, could you share with me some of your thoughts about what it's like to enhance your R3 efforts by either like partnering with communication staff or expanding your communications and marketing skill set? Talk to me about that a little bit.
I think our internal collaboration has been vital. I know we've each worked with individual teams within our states to pump this information out via our state's social media, so like on our Kansas Wildlife and Parks Facebook page and so on. Julia manages our She Goes Outdoors Facebook page and does a phenomenal job keeping that updated, asking fun questions, and really trying to get like organic engagement on that page. As we all know, when you share something on Facebook and then someone else shares it and grabs a hold of it, it just opens up to a so much broader network. And so our partners have also been really fantastic to take those communications and spread them out through their networks as well. And that's where we've seen the most growth, is people just grabbing onto that and sharing it, and helping support our community. We've also taken I don't know if it's fully unique, but a little bit of a different approach, saying, hey, we're not necessarily experts in these fields, and putting ourselves in the shoes of our subscribers and of our audiences and saying, we are learning right along with you. We will bring in some quote unquote experts. We're also going to have people that are just like you experiencing this for the first time. We're all on this journey together, however far along. And we hope that through communicating in that style, people see themselves reflected in this program and can find their network and their niche to follow back up with.
And I think Tanna really hit on probably the truest reality is just authentic. Like, we are ladies who enjoy doing things outdoors, and we want more ladies to do things outdoors. Like, it's simple, right? And we've all been given latitude and flexibility within fairly rigid state government protocols to say, try it, fail. What did you learn, right? Like, go mess up. I mean, I don't think any of us could be so lucky to be given that directive. Go mess up. What did you learn? And don't do it again. And then go try it again, right? Like, just, and through that, and through just like honestly asking industry, is this something that interests you? I can't tell you how many times I've been told no, stupid idea, just not even going to respond, right? Like, but the more we keep asking, like, oh, they're not going away, they're still here and they're growing, and we've made some amazing partners. It's been fun to spotlight different businesses. Like with the pollinator box, Julia was able to spotlight a bunch of different Nebraska boxes. We've gotten to spotlight a bunch of different like small custom jig businesses, or Locket Lures out of Kansas, Buzzy Wax, like just these small entities that have really great products and are willing to work with us to spend sunscreen, right, to like grow their name too within this network. So just that opportunity to kind of roll with the one yes and to see where it takes you.
Mm-hmm.
We've also tackled a lot of different topics. So, we started with hunting, and then maybe we were moved to fishing, and then it was outdoor cooking. I'm seeing that, as we have, those of that were in the hunting, they also kind of continue to follow us. And so, okay, we've learned this topic. Now we also want to learn this topic, and now we want to learn this new as well. We haven't focused on one particular thing. It's the same with our podcast too. We really want to drive in those subscribers. So maybe a soft topic, they join us, they listen, they're subscribing, and then they continue to follow us along. And I think that's been key as well, to grab those ears and keep those ears.
You guys have a unique opportunity, like this particular group has a unique opportunity to help challenge some of those stereotypes out there, right? Like, this is a group of amazing women. You all are total just inspirations to me and other women that are learning and just seeing role models in our field. I think that's so important, to see representation and role models. And then also to challenge stereotypes. If you pull someone in with pollinator box who can then engage with people who might go hunting or who might go fishing and they may not, like, you can really address some of those narratives and influence the way people think about these activities in a really meaningful and positive way. And I think I can't think of a better group of people to do that. And it makes me really excited about the reach of this particular program. It's so cool to hear, like, we sent a box to Florida, we sent a box out to this place, like people are hearing you and engaging with you in a fantastic way. And I hope you all are incredibly proud of this effort. It's exciting to see it.
And I have to say that, like, there's a huge thank you to management to not say you have to drive license sales, right? Like, we're meeting people, to Julia's point, at all different spectrums, wherever they are on that adoption model with whatever activity, right? Like, we're getting some pheasant hunters that are literally out all the time, and they just thought this was a cool way to introduce some new friends into it. Then we're getting people that, yeah, I've heard of that bees are like dying off, but have no more knowledge, right? So I'm way on the awareness. So, like, kind of using the outdoor recreation model, adoption model, as like, there's our pendulum, and where are you on it, and come in, depending on the box topic, like, jump on and off. It's been kind of fun because, we have a handful of ladies that have bought all 4 boxes and are like, well, now I guess 6 that are like itching for, like, when's it shipping? I'm like, I don't know. I got to look at my calendar. Like, we got to get production. We got to get shipping stuff. Like, there's this whole other dynamic that I know that they don't see and don't necessarily care about, but it's like, it's a whole nother job just to kind of think in procurement. And so it's kind of fun to see that network really grow and just bring new people into different folds, right? So you might be an avid hunter, avid fisherman, but maybe now you're being exposed for the first time to bird watching, and how those really do go hand in hand in the bigger conservation message.
I think that's spot on. That's absolutely spot on message. And like, bringing people together to unite over common ground too is just a common theme in a lot of these, and you're just showing people that there's more similarities between us and than differences. One of the questions I have for you is on the sustainability of the boxes themselves. I know you all are heavily engaged with the podcasts and webinars, and you've created a really amazing communication strategy. Will you continue with all of these pieces into the future? What are your goals and visions moving ahead? What are some of the things that you'd like to see?
$1 million question, isn't it?
That's the hard one.
No, we need the crystal ball. We're certainly doing a backpacking hiking box and a shooting range box. Awesome. It's funny, we're kind of having lots of different sidebars and possible interest in helping us. I kind of alluded to it, but Julia has some pictures of, like, just the stuff, right? Like, you get a box that has 15 or 20 things in it. So therefore there's like 300 boxes in a warehouse somewhere that has to, get dispersed and put into a box, shipped, all of those things. And for $50, quite honestly, like, the $50 doesn't even cover half of the materials, let alone the shipping. So that's, like, just been incurred by the state. So it's a great question. Don't know is the answer.
On the boxes.
Excuse me. It was a really great product during COVID. Now that we're getting back into in-person classes, there's kind of the continuous question of, is it still needed?
I think that's a really good question. I understand that, right? Like, if you're able to engage in person and able to bring people in and provide resources in that way, that it's just what the community that you serve needs, right? I think one of the very cool features of all of these things is that you've been connecting people throughout this entire time with the support network. That's incredible, whether it's, Women on the Wing, or whether it's an in-person opportunity to gather and learn new skills. I think that part's just really inspiring.
I also think it's taken some time to evaluate our in-person programs, and perhaps there's different ways of approaching our in-person programs that would accommodate the boxes of some sort. Like, okay, this is how we did the boxes and this is how we did our in-person. So now maybe we need to tweak both so that they will fit together, so that we can do that. Or we need to hire a bunch more people to do the boxes too. And we know how well that's going to happen.
I think too, at least I went into this thinking, okay, COVID, like we're not going to be able to do bow. So we need to design a program that is going to reach our bow audience, or an audience very similar to our in-person bow audience. And what at least I'm learning from some of our preliminary data dives in Kansas is that our She Goes Outdoors box subscribers are not necessarily the same audience as BOW. And I kind of had a dumb moment when I was thinking of my own mother, and she is an outdoors woman through and through, loves to get outdoors, loves to learn new things, and loves to teach others. However, she didn't really want to go to bow and camp in a cabin with a bunch of other women. She's a little more antisocial than that. And so we're learning that this program, while we do reach some of our traditional bow participants, we're reaching another more niche audience. And so the question now is like, how can we further tap into that and understand the nuances of that audience to best serve them moving forward, be it by working more closely with a partner or an outside organization, adjusting the program, et cetera.
And then the other thing is, I mean, with such small staffs that Julia kind of mentioned, like, is your time better served doing a 3-hour webinar with 150 ladies via Zoom, or is it better served in person with 10 or 15 in one specific location? Like, what is the goal? And certainly some activities lend themselves much better to one platform versus the other. Others, they work the same. So it is kind of, it's this kind of continuous discussion, not battle, but continuous like back and forth as to like putting the right people in the right places to get that message out. So the short answer to your question is, great question. We're going to learn.
Well, I think you're demonstrating adaptive management here, right? Like you've developed a strategy to meet an immediate need and did an amazing job at doing that. The needs have changed. And so how do you continue to be adaptive throughout this process and allow this program and this particular initiative to be living and breathing in response to the needs of the public that you serve? So I'm excited to see where this does go. And I've seen your podcasts, I've listened to your podcasts, I've seen your webinars, and I'm just so excited to continue to follow along on your pathway. As we start to wrap up here, I'd just love to hear from your perspectives, what are any takeaways that you have about what it means to build a bigger R3 team? You guys are, this team specifically built a bigger R3 team by working across state lines and working with partners. But, if you could speak to the people at home about what that's meant for you, or if you could provide some encouraging words or takeaways for folks that are considering partnership, like talk to us about that.
It all kind of comes back to capacity. We are blessed within the R3 community to be working in such tight-knit networks, and we are all facing similar capacity constraints. And so sharing this work, not only the work, but also the wealth of knowledge that comes from doing the work has been really, really beneficial for us.
That's a great point.
And we each have within our states different expertise, organizations, communities, and we have really found that out. And I've really enjoyed, just learning what Kansas brings to the table, what Iowa's been able to bring to the table, and Nebraska, and just learning from each other where we may have not been able to tap into our own states prior to this experience.
Yeah. To echo those, like, do it, try it. Don't be afraid. Like, what we've gained way more knowledge, insight. We've learned more about what we internally can do and what our state is capable of doing and where we need to grow, right? Like, all three of the states have brought different things. Like, we have a great relationship with our instructor association, so we could do some of the money stuff. Julia has a little bit more of the willingness to do some of the tech stuff, so that worked. Tanna's happy to be the face of the podcast or the face of the webinar, right? And like keep us all in line, right? So we all have strengths that we could play on. I'm happy to be behind the scenes, never be on camera, but answering as many questions as I can. So like we all have different personalities, and if I tried to do this whole thing myself, it would have failed. Or just in Iowa, I don't think it would have gotten the traction that it was able to do by bouncing it off of different states. So push yourself, expand your boundary, and then take the time to ask questions and be receptive to the feedback, right? Like, yeah, I can't do that. Okay, so we'll have to figure out another way to do it. Or yes, let's figure out how to do it, right? I guess that's my advice. Try it and give yourself time to learn.
Yeah, I think along those same lines, like every state, when I was a state practitioner, every state felt like they had to have their own stamp of ownership on something. They had to create their own initiative that did the exact same thing as another state's initiative, right? As opposed to partnering and using each other's resources in a collaborative way to build momentum together. It was, no, we're each going to create our own separate and disparate initiatives with our own stamps on it. And this what you're doing is highly efficient and effective, and you're taking advantage of each other's skills and strengths, and you're maximizing the resources that you can share. And that to me speaks of just real collaboration, and I just want to shine a bright spotlight on that. It's rare, and I think it's a very particularly valuable type of collaboration that you're doing.
Thanks, Taniya. This program has also given us the opportunity, we've all recognized and observed women becoming a growing force in the outdoor community, in conservation, in the outdoor industry. And so this is an opportunity for us and our partners to be able to support that, but also for some of our partners who want to support women, but don't necessarily have their own strategy yet, for us to invite them on board and say, hey, we love that you want to support women. Put your money where your mouth is, get involved with this program, and we will help you do that. We don't want to shame anybody that hasn't stepped into that realm yet. We want to make this a welcoming community and invite people to join us. So it's really been a fun and unique process. And Rachel and Julia are rock stars. I really do get to just be the talking head a lot of the time. So it's great.
I can't think of a better note to end on. If you want to get involved, we have Tanna, Rachel, and Julia here with us today, and the information to access She Goes Outdoors is shared along with this webinar. So thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you viewing us at home, please feel free to tune in next time as the Council continues to explore all of the different ways to build out your R3 team. Thank you all for joining us.